Hello and welcome to the Atoll, your home for Waterworld fandom. On today's video, we'll be taking a look at everything we know about Gregor's Dirigible, the amazing flying machine created by the old inventor himself. We'll first take a look at all of its appearances in the film, then break down how the visual effects team brought these scenes to life. We will conclude this video with a captivating look at how the flying apparatus fits into the greater Waterworld lore. In the film, the dirigible is first alluded to briefly in a scene in the extended version of Waterworld, where Gregor and Helen are discussing their plans to escape the society of the Atoll after an ugly community meeting discussing the fate of the captured mariner. However, we don't get our first glimpse of Gregor's airship until the battle for the Atoll against the Smoker invasion. Outside of the Atoll, the Hellfire gunner boat sends a barrage of bullets piercing through the unsubstantial wall and ricocheting about Gregor's laboratory. The gunfire sends a frightened Gregor falling forward and into a lever. This starts a chain reaction that begins to fill the quilt-like envelope of the dirigible that will pull the flying machine into the sky. In the extended cut of the film, we are given quite a few extra shots of Gregor scrambling about and loading supplies and paper scrolls into the cargo basket of the air machine. We also see this very interesting moment where Gregor attaches motorized propellers onto the airship's gondola as a single unit. Keep this in mind, as this concept of a detachable propulsion unit will come up again shortly. Also in the extended version, we are given a few extra glimpses of Gregor attempting to anchor the dirigible to the floor of the laboratory, a wide shot of Gregor gesturing to Helen and Enola, and some additional shots of him chasing the airship up through the tower using the circular staircase, and then making a heroic leap and grabbing to catch the dirigible on its ascent. Unable to stop the AWOL flying machine from leaving without them, Gregor pleads with Helen and Enola to quickly catch up as he desperately throws a rope to them, but to no avail. Gregor gives out an apology as he and the dirigible burst out of the top of the Atoll tower and into the battle with the smokers. The Deacon spies the airship and commands his flag boys to signal to the Hellfire gunner to shoot it out of the sky. The Hellfire gunner lifts his barrels into the air, placing Gregor in the dirigible, clearing his sights, and squeezes the triggers. But just as he does this, a berserker smoker on a jet ski launches between him and the flying machine, unintentionally taking the lethal hit and bursting into a ball of flames. Gregor then makes a quiet exit from the Atoll and its destruction, leaving Helen and Enola to their own fate and eventual camaraderie with the mariner. Gregor and his airship do not make an appearance again until the third act of the film. After Enola is kidnapped by the Deacon, Helen and the mariner are stranded upon the burnt remains of the trimaran. At their lowest point, they drift helplessly with little hope of survival. But then, a miracle from the sky. Gregor and his dirigible hover above the stranded heroes. Gregor tells them he was patrolling the area looking for surviving Atollers when he spotted the smoke from the burning trimaran. He compliments the mariner, telling him he was very clever to burn his own boat to signal to the surveying airship. Gregor then throws down a rope and Helen and the mariner climb aboard. Again, in this sequence, we are treated to a few extra and alternative shots in the extended version of Waterworld, like this glorious wide shot of Gregor's balloon gliding through the clouds in its approach towards the stranded mariner and Helen. We also get an extra shot of the mariner, Helen, and Gregor aboard the dirigible, where the mariner, upon seeing the new cobbled-together atoll, known as New Oasis in the novel, draws his machete, apparently triggered by the memory of being sentenced to death back at the original atoll. Helen reassures him that the Atollers will not bring violence upon him this time around. Once at New Oasis, we are also given some really peaceful wide shots in the extended version of the skyship docked to the ramshackled atoll. After the Mariner rides away from New Oasis on a jet ski to save Enola, Gregor then looks up to the sky, hinting at the airship's return later in the film. The dirigible then returns again for the climax of the film in another harrowing rescue mission. After the Mariner interrupts the Deacon from flying off with Enola in the smoker skyboat, the two heroes face a desperate situation standing on the deck of the now sinking D's, when all of a sudden, a rope falls from the sky. It's Gregor, Helen, and the Enforcer aboard a modified dirigible. Now I have to make a note here. I always assumed that the filmmakers chose to use a different gondola on the dirigible for the final scene because it was necessary for the airship to now hold 5 cast members, and Gregor's original airship held a maximum capacity of 3 people. However, the novelization actually offers an in-universe reason for the change of the gondola. To quote the novel, "This was a fortified version, a new, bigger, battle-ready basket with metal sheathing protecting both the basket and the underside of the balloon itself." So you see, this new airship design in the climax of the film is actually because Gregor knew that a more sturdy gondola was needed to protect the occupants and the balloon above. Perhaps this was a lesson he learned in his near demise at the beginning of the film. And I think it's also interesting to note here that the switching out of the gondola is perhaps why the filmmakers had the motorized propellers be a detachable unit, as they foresaw that it would be necessary for Gregor to transform the airship in this climatic scene. And it's fairly clear that the motor unit from the original dirigible has been placed upon this new, battle-ready gondola. With the D's sinking beneath them, the Mariner and Enola grab and begin to be pulled up by the rope, but from the plumes of smoke, beaten but not defeated, the Deacon grabs the rope too and begins to ascend with them as the aircraft drifts up and away. He eventually grabs Enola's foot as the Mariner struggles to hang on to her. Helen grabs an object and hurls it at the Deacon's head, while Enola gives him a swift kick and sends him plummeting to the ocean below. And if you slow down the film and watch it frame by frame, you'll see that it appears that Helen has hit the Deacon with an unlit Molotov cocktail, which is noteworthy since in the novelization, Helen, Gregor, and the Enforcer actually engage in battle with the smokers by tossing Molotov cocktails down onto the deck of the D's. The Mariner and Enola are finally pulled aboard the airship and reunited with their companions as the D slips beneath the waves of Waterworld. Meanwhile, the Deacon climbs aboard an abandoned jet ski and takes aim at the dirigible. His lucky shot happens to snap a connecting cable on the dirigible right where Enola is sitting, sending her back falling towards the ocean. Note that if the Mariner had not taught Enola to swim earlier in the film, this would have been a moment of certain doom for her. The Deacon signals to some other smokers to diverge on the helpless Enola. The Mariner springs into action, grabbing a line which in the novelization he, quote, relished the flexible consistency of it. It wasn't rope, but something very precious in Waterworld. Rubber. The Mariner attaches the rubber cord to his ankle and hands the other end to Helen, telling her to tie it off. He then, without a second of hesitation, leaps from the dirigible, plunging down towards his friend stranded in the water below. Helen, realizing the moment unfolding, springs into action, quickly tying off the other end of the cord just as the Mariner hits the bottom of his fall. The rubber cord stretches back as the Mariner snags Enola from the water and both go flying back into the air. The Deacon and his fellow smokers watch in amazement, but in their distraction don't realize that they are on a death path towards each other. They collide in a massive explosion as the Mariner and Enola spring to safety. Though I should note, this is actually not the death of the Deacon, as he returns multiple times a day to battle Helen and the Mariner in Waterworld, a live sea war spectacular. Enola and the Mariner are then pulled aboard the skyship once again, and again in the extended cut of the film, we are treated to a few extra shots of Gregor having a sudden epiphany about the meaning of Enola's tattoo. But this sudden realization will have to be explored in a future video on the secrets of Enola's tattoo. With Gregor's epiphany, the crew suddenly has a direction to fly that will hopefully arrive them at dry land. What follows is a montage of the party flying over a long period of time, several days according to the novelization, towards the mythical dry land. With rations running low, a strange animal finds a perch on the side of the dirigible. The Mariner knows this is a good sign, and as the skyship descends from the clouds, the mountains rise up. They have finally arrived at the fabled dry land. The final shot of the dirigible in the film is of it wrecked upon the rocks below the waterfall that the crew first discovers upon reaching dry land, and this is the last we see of this fantastic cinematic vehicle. Or is it? However, just one point before we go any further here. Technically, Gregor's airship is not a hot air balloon, but rather a blimp or dirigible, since it presumably relies on some other gas than hot air to stay afloat, and since there's no combustion unit continuously filling the envelope, and also because it's under its own power and steering and not free-floating like a hot air balloon. Gregor's airship is also not technically a rigid airship like a Zeppelin or the Hindenburg, since it's clear in this shot that the envelope's shape is maintained by the pressure of the gas that fills it and not an underlying internal structure. And this leads to another interesting question. What gas fills and lifts Gregor's dirigible? While modern blimps rely on the lifting power of helium, blimps of old like the Hindenburg were lifted with hydrogen, which is extremely flammable. But looking at these bubbling tubes of water during the inflating of Gregor's dirigible, I have come to believe that the airship is lifted through the process of electrolysis, where electricity is used to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. That hydrogen is then pumped into the envelope of the skycraft. This leads us to conclude that Gregor's dirigible may have had the same fate as the Hindenburg if the slightest spark had entered the envelope. Now that we have familiarized ourselves with the appearance of Gregor's dirigible in the various versions of the film and novelization, let's go back and take a look at how the filmmakers brought this unique aircraft to life through practical and digital visual effects. For many of the film shots, the dirigible's gondola was done practically by simply lifting the film's prop with a crane and shooting against either the open sky or the ocean below. As for the dirigible's envelope, in most shots it was actually a 3D digital effect that was composited into the shots of the gondola suspended from the cranes, and even in some wide shots the entire dirigible and the characters in it were completely digital effects superimposed on a sky backplate or a swooping helicopter shot. The 3D model of the Derigibles Envelope was crafted by Boss Film Studios, a prominent American digital effects company in the 80s and 90s. According to producer Charles Gordon, each digital effects shot in the film cost up to $35,000. However, the one shot of the Dirigibles Envelope that is an actual prop or practical effect is this overhead shot of Gregor's laboratory, where we can see a real balloon being inflated, readying itself for flight. Many of the shots of the armed, battle-ready dirigible and the characters in it were actually shot against blue screen on a soundstage. These blue screen shots were combined with footage of the sky as well as some digital smoke and atmosphere by the company McAllister to create a final shot that feels like our heroes are soaring above the waves of Waterworld. The film has a total of 76 blue screen composites. The film's final stunt, where the mariner bungee jumps from the airship to save Enola from the converging smokers, was composed of several different shots, all with their own technical strategies to create a sequence that feels like a single moment of suspense and action. Some of the shots of the mariner falling were performed by high dive expert Bob Brown from a 100-foot platform suspended above the water with jet skis roaring below. The shot of Enola being grabbed from the water was pulled off with Costner and Majorino hooked to a cable system with a special brake which guaranteed that both actors would come up together as Costner hits the bottom of his drop. The stunt was directed by the company Special Effects Unlimited. Special Effects Unlimited also engineered the jet ski explosion by rigging 3 jet skis on a cable pulley system connected to a central pulley, where they culminated in the explosion, which used gasoline and primacord to be detonated on cue. The shot of the mariner and Enola flying back up with the explosion below was done in a warehouse against a blue screen. Costner was attached to a cable that yanked him upwards with a little person stunt double for Enola. This was then composited with the explosion footage captured by Special Effects Unlimited. Now that we have looked extensively at the dirigible in the film and novelization, let's explore where else the airship pops up in the extended Waterworld lore, starting with the various video games. The Gameboy version of Waterworld has this glorious piece of pixel art depicting the dirigible approaching dry land and the mariner Helen and Enola together in the gondola. Interestingly, the Genesis, the Virtual Boy, and the Super NES versions have no mention of the dirigible, and in fact the Super NES version shows the trimaran approaching dry land in some sort of alternate reality of the film. In the cancelled 3DO on-rails shooter, we are given 3 shots of the airship flying about the paradise of dry land in the demo video for the game. Moving on to the board game, we are given a special dirigible token, of which there's only one in the entire game, that allows the player that obtains it to move to any other spot on the board. The dirigible also makes quite a few appearances among the cards of the Fleer Ultra trading card set, with a total of 7 cards. Noteworthy is that card 145 actually calls the dirigible, quote, a chair balloon, and also makes mention of the detachable propeller engine. Also, an interesting fact here is an error was made when printing the cards for the collection, giving us 2 108 cards. Yeah, that's right, Unlucky Shot and Help From Above both have the same Help From Above description on the back. Technically, the Fleer Ultra card set does not have a card 109. The airship also, very interestingly, is alluded to in the Children of the Leviathan comic book series. During the final invasion on the Leviathan's ancient battleship to save Dr. Noah, the mariner propels his submerged trimaran out from under the sea, breaking the surface and flying into the air, landing aboard the ship. He then battles the Leviathan's gang members and rescues Dr. Noah. To make their escape, the mariner deploys a secret feature that he has added to his new trimaran. A large balloon inflates itself above the boat and propels it skyward. In the text boxes on this page, it says, "Not all the trimaran's features are the mariner's own invention. Its balloon system, for instance, he borrowed from an old friend." And then there's an asterisk, which leads us to this text box. See Waterworld, the movie, editor. So as you can see, the mariner's clever balloon feature is of course inspired by Old Gregor's Dirigible. But you may be wondering, where is the final resting place for the actual prop used for Gregor's Dirigible? Well, I'm very happy to say that it's on display at Universal Studios Hollywood as you enter the arena for Waterworld, a live Sea War spectacular. That's right, as you pass through the tower of the front entrance, if you look up, you'll actually see the on-film prop suspended gloriously from the ceiling, looking as if it was about to take off. A very fitting place for this fantastic piece of Waterworld memorabilia to live out its silver screen legacy and continue to delight audiences and new generations of fans. Well, there you have it. That's everything we know about Gregor's Dirigible, a truly memorable piece of Waterworld machinery and lore. If you enjoyed this video and want to explore more of the Waterworld universe, please feel free to browse all the videos on this channel. And while you're at it, hit the subscribe button. It's a great way to show your support for this type of content and help us get to our goal of 1,000 subscribers. The Atoll now has an Instagram as well, so be sure to check out that link in the description below. And with that, thanks, as always, for joining me at the Atoll.